Hi everyone, welcome to Sext, which, as we keep telling you all, because you're giggling at the name of this, it is word for sixth, as in the sixth hour, which is noon, and it's like a traditional prayer time. And so we thought we would playfully continue using that old word of sext and call it spiritual space at the noon hour. So looks like we got a few people that have jumped on. I can't see who that is. I'm so sorry. I can't work this technology. At least so far, my screen hasn't gone away like last week. That was scary. Oh, three people. Hey, welcome. So take a minute, say hi in the comments. Not that I can see those. Oh, I see Naomi. Hi. Okay. Hey, there's Sarah. Hey, hey, you two. So I wanted to read a little poem for us today and then also talk about Veterans Day, with today being Veterans Day. So let me first begin by reading a poem. One of my favorite poets, Hafiz, from, I don't know, 700-800 years ago, a Sufi mystic poet. And let me read one of my favorite poems of his. It's entitled Becoming Human. Hello to whoever just jumped on. Glad you're here. But Hafez wrote, once a man came to me and spoke for hours about his great visions of God that he felt he was having. He asked me for confirmation, saying, are these wondrous dreams true? I replied, how many goats do you have? He looked surprised and said, I'm speaking of sublime visions and you're asking me about my goats? And I spoke again. Yes, brother. How many goats do you have? Well, Hafez, I have 62. And how many wives? Again, he looked surprised and then said, 4. How many rose bushes in your garden? How many children? Are your parents still alive? Do you feed the birds in winter? And to all he answered. Then I said, you asked me if I thought if your visions were true, and I would say that they are true if they make you become more human, more kind to every creature and plant that you know. Becoming Human by Hafez. It's beautiful, right? The guy comes to Hafez, the great teacher, spiritual teacher, and says, I have all these visions of God, and I think God's speaking to me and doing something in my life. Do you think it's true? And Hafez says, well, how do you the plants in your life? Do you feed the birds in the winter time? And if the answer is yes, then I think your visions of God are true. I love that. I think this is what spirituality and religion is at its best. This is what it looks like to be most alive. And now let me jump 700 or 800 years into today to talk about Veterans Day. Today is Veterans Day, and in what was it, 1918, at the end of the war to end all wars, and they called it Veterans Day. And well, they called it Armistice Day or Truce Day. And not too many years later, after the wars had not ended and violence had not ended, they realized, maybe this wasn't the war to end all wars. And the holiday became renamed Veterans Day to make it more broad and inclusive of all veterans, but also probably because, um, we don't live in a truce world. We live in a different kind of reality. And I'm a realist. I understand that violence and aggression and tribal thinking and hatred of outsiders is part of what it means to be human. not at our best, at our worst. But I just think it's part of our DNA and it's part of our psychology. I think we wouldn't have killed off all of our near competitors in our evolutionary struggle if we weren't inherently kind of a violent species. And so here we are. We have these violent tendencies with us. That's just how it is. But then I think we have these great spiritual and religious traditions that teach us how to live with those. What do we do with those violent tendencies? How do we not let them rule over us so that we destroy ourselves and destroy our planet and our world? And religious and spiritual traditions at their best, they teach us how to subvert that tendency for violence and aggression and tribalism and hatred of outsiders. And then we come to a day like today, Veterans Day, where if we're not careful, it turns into a celebration of violence, a celebration, an uncritical gratitude for war making. And I've been reading essays by military vets today and reaching out to some of them because a lot of us have mixed. Are grateful for the acknowledgement of our service, but at the same time we have heavy feelings um, because of a system that is. It has taken the lives of many people, military and civilian, and in the absence of creative problem solving, future generations, in fact, my kids, my grandkids' future resources, we've traded all that for the military industrial complex, trillions of dollars spent in our poem. There are things to love about our country, 100%. Um, I think anybody who just thinks in either or dualistic thinking that something is all good or all bad is thinking like a child. So I would say that there is plenty to celebrate on this Veterans Day and the work that veterans have done to serve our country. We are still a place of freedom and democracy in the world. Study Russia, study China, these world superpowers that are becoming basically our near peers, and you will see that there are not basic freedoms to protest. There are not basic freedoms to gather and worship as you are led. And yet, still in this country, we mostly still have that right, but there are things to protest here as well. And on this Veterans Day, I'm thinking about the ways that I subvert systems that need to be subverted. I think I do that as a military member, actually. Um, I wear the uniform, and at the same time, I am helping as a chaplain, serving these troops who I am trying to help them find their truest identity, which is more than as a military member. It's a member of the human race. It's a part of being a part of God's family. That is my ultimate goal, is how do I help you find your true self? Certainly so you can do your job well as a military member, but also so that you realize you are part of a bigger human family and you can live within that wisdom. Help them to find that vision and that reason for living. So that's one of the ways that I, as a veteran, work within a system to subvert perhaps some of the parts of it that need to be subverted and overturned. I do it in many other ways. We don't have to go into all those today. I wanted to point to one resource for you on this Veterans Day, And I put the link in the description for this, and it's the organization Warrior Writers. Warrior Writers. It's a group of veterans who they get together, they write essays, they write poems, they do performative poetry. I would strongly encourage you to check out some of their work. I linked directly to one of them, uh, one of the members of that community, Jeremy Bergren, I believe is how you say his name. He has a fantastic poem called Please Try Something Different, which you'll notice is also, if you look at the first letters, it spells out PTSD. So that's a fantastic poem. I've used it on several occasions with veterans at times who feel affirmed at somebody articulating the way that a system will chew them up and spit them out. So check out his work, check out Warrior Writers, and I encourage you to just keep thinking about how do you subvert what it means to become fully alive and human. I wish you all the best on this Veterans Day. Shout out to my friends who have found a way to serve neighbor and nation. And that's often how I'll phrase it. Whether I'm giving an invocation at a military ceremony or talking, often I will use the phrase in the service of neighbor and nation. And in that term neighbor means something very specific to us Christians, right? Because Jesus tells us, love your neighbor as yourself. And then the person there in the crowd says, well, who's my neighbor? Because they're wondering, what are the caveats? Who do I not have to love? And then Jesus tells them a story about the outsider, the Samaritan, and how the Samaritan, the unexpected hero, this person was a neighbor to someone else. So, in the service of neighbor and nation, I thank you all for that. And I encourage all of us to think about how do we serve neighbor? How do we, in some way, serve our society and contribute to the common good? Maybe the idea of nation is a bit too colonial or empire for you, but how do you contribute to the good of your community and your society? Reflect on these things today. Feel free to leave comments. You're always welcome to reach out to me. I love